Welcome into Box Office Quarterbacks. Today, we are continuing our spooky season marathon that we started a few weeks ago with the Black Phone. We are revisiting Constantine from 2005 with Keanu Reeves on the heels of the sequel announcement we got last week. I am joined by Ahmed and Gerald, and we're just going to jump right into it, guys. I want to know your initial thoughts on this movie. You know, me and Gerald have watched this before, but I'm really curious of what Ahmed thinks of this film because this is his first time watching it.
For me, it was, and sorry, I feel like the more interesting person should go second since you haven't seen it yet. But for me,
Whoa.
seeing all because without ever seeing it, but like I've seen a lot of Constantine stuff. I mean, there's a lot of animated Constantine stuff on HBO Max, and then also some of the CW show where his character was in there, the CW shows. Um, this is a completely different feeling. It feels more like the animated Constantine a little bit, but also a completely different feeling than what we get from most DC Universe stuff. It is actually hits that dark note that DC EU really tried to hit with the Batman and BVS and even the Justice League. It hits it 10 times better than they ever did. Um, and I think this movie holds up very well. I know you tweeted that out yesterday, Jeff, and I agree. It holds up well. Um, and Keanu Reeves is, as always, fantastic.
Well, as the more interesting person and the most important, just kidding. No, so it wasn't until towards the end of the movie that I realized this was based on a comic book. I, you know, was thinking it was just another Keanu Reeves movie, um, and I liked it in the sense that it was Keanu in it. But other than that, I really didn't see like why it was such a big cult classic. Um, I thought some of the lines were cheesy. I thought some of the storyline was a little weird. I didn't like that Tilda Swinton played an angel. You know, um, are we doing spoilers?
We are doing
Yeah,
spoilers.
I
it's
didn't
been
like that.
17 years. There's
Hey,
Yeah,
you've had time to watch. You've had like a
I,
whole
I had to
lifetime.
watch it yesterday. There's
you've
no
had
excuse for any of you. No, I didn't like Tilda Swinton's character. There was just a lot of things I didn't like about it. But towards the end, I was like, oh, okay, now it's kind of interesting. But it just seemed like, just another. If you like Keanu Reeves, then you will like this movie.
I do want everybody to know because I don't know if we've actually addressed this before with Ahmed. Ahmed joined our team. He's very good at watching movies and digesting them. And you speaking on him, and we love having him on these kind of things, particularly because it's a different view. It's a view that Jeff, Eric, and I really can't share in the sense of we're all into the superhero nerd culture shit. And Ahmed just, I mean, he is, but he isn't. He didn't know, like you said, it wasn't a comic book, and which is why it's a very interesting take. Because for me and Jeff, obviously, we're going to see Constantine, a guy that we know to be in Justice League Dark, a guy that we know to be a hero that can help heroes like Batman and Superman and stuff like that. And we kind of, I don't know, maybe gatekeep and not want to ever admit when things are bad. And bringing Ahmed, I really appreciate that fresh view you bring. So I do, because like there are some things in this movie that there gets a little cheesy at times, or maybe it runs a little long. But overall, I think that this is just that comic adaptation that is rare, especially during the early 2000s, because you would get like Spider-Man, but everything else, Catwoman. What were some of the? I don't even want to name all of them, but there was a lot of bad comic adaptations back in that time period, and this was not one of them. You could have watched it as a non-comic book fan and still been able to follow along. Um, and you could have watched it as a comic book fan and get some of the meta jokes. I think in the first like 30 minutes, Keanu Reeves makes a Robin joke, which makes Robin canon in his universe. So there's just a lot of different things that went into this movie, and it it makes me wonder what the next step is. It makes me wonder why they didn't have a sequel 17 years ago, because I think it does leave you off on a cliffhanger of sorts. What happens next?
Yeah, so what I was going to say earlier is I think this movie holds up extremely well, like more than any of the superhero movies that came out in that time frame. I think the special effects are great. I think it really reminds me of the Sandman TV show that just came out as far as the tone goes. And I, I like it better, I think, 17 years later, maybe because I'm more of an adult now and I can pick up on more things. But I am surprised that we didn't get a sequel. It shocked the hell out of me when I did find out that we were getting one. It just came out of left field. I never thought we'd see Keanu Reeves as this character again. So I'm really happy that we are getting that. So, for me, I do want to talk about favorite scenes and what you guys like the most. I have a few in mind, but we'll start with Gerald again, just to see what you like the best in this movie.
It's a hard pick, but I think one of my favorite scenes might be the first time we see Constantine getting to use his powers to expel a demon, going into that apartment home, and it felt very Constantine like from the Constantine I know. I'm not deep into the Constantine comics. I've read one or two here, but just like the approach that he had to taking over the demon, the willingness to do it, and then also just like the unique way of doing it that you don't see in a lot of movies like this that deal with demonology. Um, it felt very Constantine like to me, and I did like that.
This is like it's all blowing my mind. Everything you guys are saying, like he's supposed to be in the same universe as Batman. Because the whole time I was watching this, I was just thinking, this is Keanu Reeves from Devil's Advocate, so of course this is something he would do. And I was just looking at the movie from a like a strictly biblical sense. Like, okay, this is supposed to be the story of light versus darkness and everything like that. So I was just kind of seeing it like that. So to see that, like, or hear that it's so meta and it's so like it, mirrors its comic book counterpart so well, that is surprising to hear. I guess in that regard, I can kind of forgive some of it. But my favorite scene, I think, was just the very like end where Lucifer's trying to send him to hell, or he's trying to drag him to hell, but he can't. And that scene where God is like, no, he's mine because he made the sacrifice. And as he's ascending to heaven, he kind of just gives him the finger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which, if you've ever seen the movie This Is the End with James Franco and
That,
all those guys,
yeah.
when he says suck it, that's the part where he says, oh no, because the sin of overconfidence or arrogance or whatever, sin of pride. So it was just interesting to see that, but I did like that in the end he's given another chance, and the black that's being taken is the smoke ash that's killing him.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
it was the.
go ahead.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
No, so it does seem fitting then that there would be a sequel 17 years later. I don't know how I feel about that. It's also very coincidental that it's all coming around the same time we're supposed to see John Wick 4. We already had Matrix Resurrection. So,
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't think a sequel would happen if there wasn't such a Keanu Reeves renaissance in the past 5 years with John Wick and The Matrix coming back and everything you said, Ahmed. I think that was a key part of it. But my favorite scene in this movie, I would say, is the showdown between Constantine and Balthazar, who's played by Gavin Rossdale of Bush, which is so random. But he does such a great job as the villain in this movie, and the prosthetics when Constantine is blowing his face off with dragon breath. It looks so cool. It looks like what I wanted Two-Face to look like in a Batman movie. It looks so great. It just really puts the special effects on display, really sets up the darkness of this movie, and it draws you in for the rest of the movie. So that was my favorite scene. Another one is when Constantine's friend, the priest, drowns himself in liquor. And I didn't pick up on this when the movie came out 17 years ago, that when nothing is coming out of those bottles, he is actually drinking everything in that liquor store after being possessed. So that was a tough scene to watch, and just well done by the special effects team there as well. So
And
those are my two favorites.
I love the they almost kind of foreshadowed that too. Whenever, and I'm blanking on the demon's name now, the half demon, but whenever they introduce him, Constantine talks about how he has the ability to mess with reality, sort of like Thanos did whenever he had the Reality Stone, able to make you see things that isn't there. And that's straight up what he did to the priest, made him think he wasn't drinking and ended up drinking himself to death. And it looks like a suicide by alcohol. Instead, it was really a murder. But again, like I just like this movie, like I've said it already a few times, but just being able to take comic book material, and they changed a lot. I mean, Constantine is not an LA based hero slash anti hero. I think he's British, right?
And
Um,
blonde. Yeah.
and blonde. But for Keanu Reeves, will change a lot of stuff. Um, but they really made, like, it is a legit horror film to me. Like, it comes off horror first and comic book second, if even second. Um, Horror, adventure, religious tale. Like, I mean, there's a lot of different things here, and I think they blended it pretty well for the time they had, the CGI they had, the talent they had. Because I mean, it's not like that was a cast chock full of future Oscar winners that we see in every movie all day this like today. You know, there's some talented actors and actresses in there. It's just, I mean, other than Keanu Reeves, it kind of falls off.
Well, and it's
Yeah,
funny.
like
Go ahead.
Rachel Weisz was pretty damn good in this too, I thought, and she played multiple roles. But yeah, like the cast definitely aged well too. Everything about that's probably going to factor into my final score. But go ahead, Ahmed.
I was gonna say it's funny that you guys are talking about the graphics because that was something I had to check myself of. For its time, I really like what they did with the depiction of hell. And I was looking up the trivia because that was supposed to be footage of earlier nuclear tests, if I'm not mistaken. Um, you're right. Here it says the original script had hell depicted as a black void with a floor covered in oil. I don't know how that would have worked, but just the idea that you know, hell was being depicted through actual nuclear tests, it made it that more frightening for me.
Yeah, yeah.
Also, if it was going to be just a black screen with oil on the floor, does that not sound familiar to you, Jeff? You live in Stranger Things state.
That's true. It does. It does. You know, it did remind me of the Upside Down a lot. The look of hell in this movie.
A
Now that
little,
you
yeah,
say it, it
yeah.
really does. And I mean, the devil looked fucking frightening. Just he was wearing this all white suit. He had no eyebrows, and he had that goo like all over him. It was pretty damn cool. Peter Stormare is the actor who plays the devil. But yeah, I I like the look of this movie. I really love the characters, and I think we should get into our favorite characters. Who is your favorite character of this movie? Let's start with Ahmed this time.
That's tough because I think I liked Midnight just to because I'm pretty sure for everyone it's going to be Constantine, but I really liked Midnight because it seemed like he was the only one that was really playing by the rules of you know the idea of balancing good and evil with respect to not interfering with human nature. uh, it sucks that he was blinded by everything else that was, or I'm not blinded, but he was just so oblivious to what was happening around him until it was almost too late.
Yeah, I think like Ahmed's right. Also, Ahmed, side note, Papa Midnight is one of three characters in this movie actually from the comics. Um, Constantine, what is it, Kaz?
I
The
forgot about Chaz. Yeah, it's
yeah,
Shia LaBeouf is in this movie.
Shia LaBeouf is in this movie. He's a main character from the comics,
Before he went
and
crazy.
obviously, yeah, before he went
Yeah,
crazy and started plagiarizing stuff. um,
yeah,
I
Love you,
love this movie.
Shia. I love you.
Um, but Constantine, I think in this one, I think Keanu Reeves plays a really good, jaded man who knows exactly where he's going once he dies, and um, I feel the depression seeping out of him. That's the right word. Because he seems like a depressed man, like, and he kind of hints at it, and like there's a little hint towards the comics where he talks about like I'm not going to have another friend's ghost on my shoulder. Because in the comics, every time one of his friends dies, he is cursed with having their ghosts just always behind him. So there were a friend's ghost talking to him at times, and he mentions that to he mentions it in the movie, but just things like that I really like from Keanu. Keanu, I think, made this movie great. I think it was probably would have been a good movie with a lot of other actors, but I think he made it great.
Yeah. I would say, yeah, Constantine's my favorite character too, which is not a surprise. But now that I've learned more about this character in the past 2 decades and watching his portrayal again, I like it even better. And I think Keanu Reeves is one of the only actors to where fans aren't going to complain about such big changes from the comics. Like if it was, who knows, Chris Pratt as Constantine, they're like, this dude's American, he is not British. They would complain about it all day long. So I love Constantine. I love his portrayal. Rachel Weisz's character, the cop, is my second favorite because the chemistry between those two is just amazing. Holy crap. I wanted them to kiss the entire time. I was like, let's do it now.
There,
And I thought it was going to happen, and it
it
never
was going
happened.
to happen, but like she looks like she's about to kiss him, and he's just like, no, I was going for this blade. I was going for this
Yeah.
spear.
Well, did you see the? I know you said you read the trivia, Ahmed, but in the trivia they mentioned that the directors had thought about it, but they didn't want to do it because it would take away from the mood of the movie. That even though the character won, like he still didn't win. He was almost given heaven, but the devil said, "No, you're going to live long enough to prove you deserve to live in hell." Took the cancer out. So even though Keanu Constantine wins, at the end of this, he also loses.
Yeah, but but it's not it's not lost on him that he has been given a gift. It's why towards the end of the movie, whenever he's like reaching for something, it looks like he's about to smoke another cigarette, which would
Makes a
be
guns.
the typical cool guy move, but it's not. It was gum, like you said.
Yeah. Um, yeah.
Yeah. So shall we get to our final scores?
Yeah.
All right, you, Gerald, you go first.
All Star. I mean, I can't call it a Hall of Fame. It's not the best DC movie. It's not the best horror movie ever. Um, I think All Star is more than fine with it. It's a good movie. I would definitely recommend watching it. I'll probably watch it again soon and watch it before the new one comes out. I'm interested to see what they change, if anything, if it's a direct sequel or maybe it's a reboot of some kind. Um, like you said, Jeff, I think the world in general has learned a hell of a lot more about Constantine, the character, in the past decade and a half. So it's going to have a sharper eye on it than it did 17 years ago.
Yeah, and for me, I'm going to say an all-star too, simply because I had no desire to really watch this movie again until the sequel was announced. So I watched it in theaters, I bought it on DVD, and I watched it then, but I hadn't watched it in 17 years. So if it was one of my favorite movies of all time, which is what our Hall of Fame rank is, I would have watched this thing sometime in the last decade and a half. So that's why I'm going to put it at an all-star. It's still solid. I think everybody should revisit it if you haven't seen it in a while. What about you, Ahmed?
I think I'd give it a runner up, which is very weird to say, uh, but just from a cinephile perspective, I was just, or like a amateur movie critic that I am, I was just kind of turned off by the whole thing. I liked it. I wouldn't, I would say people should watch it at least once. I would watch the sequel, especially with that cliffhanger of an ending and knowing that there's actually going to be a sequel to it. I would like to see what happens. But I'm very reluctantly giving it that rating just because I'm still looking at it from a not a comic book perspective, but a pseudo biblical movie.
Yeah, that's all fair points there. Like I see where you're coming from.
Yeah. I
Uh,
mean, right now we've got two All Stars and a bench warmer. That is 2 to 4, 4, 4, 8. I'm trying to do math in my head. What is it?
it's
It's a 2.5 star, 3-star movie. I think that
it's
fits.
a solid C plus
Yeah. I
on
mean,
our
that's
scale, so it's not bad
it's
if we're
not
doing
bad.
it by that.
there's a lot of things that can change. One thing I hope we see in the new one is him actually using magic, because in all the Constantine that I've seen, his magic seems to appear more like what we see from Doctor Strange with the circles and the hand movements and like glowing stuff. So I do hope we get to see that, and I hope we get to find out pretty quickly what his role in the DCEU going forward will be, because I think, and maybe it's just conspiracy, but I think part of the reason we got a green light for a second one is because they knew Marvel was looking to expand, and if they got Keanu, Marvel's going to swing a lot more fans their ways. And now that DC gets to hold on to Keanu, it's a big name. It's a big name you get to hold on to. And if he can kill it in Constantine 2 and continue to do good work throughout the DCEU, he could be one of those that helps save and turn that thing around.
Yeah, he can be their Doctor Strange, their version of it, and tie everything together in the mystical realm of the DC universe. So that is, yeah, definitely something I want to see. The dogs are breaking into the room, but yeah. What
But I
about
was
you, Ahmed?
No, I think just the fact that Keanu's in there, like you guys said, that'll just make the movie watchable. I think, you know, it probably won't be an Oscar-winning film, um, with respect to just the fact that, DC hasn't been, doing so great aside from the Zack Snyder, director's cut of Justice League. Um, but I think like it'll be forgiven, even if it is bad from my standards or from whatever standards, because everyone just likes Keanu, and Keanu is, I think, Keanu. Even if the movie sucks, people will still watch it for Keanu, and people will still enjoy it because of Keanu, because they know he's going to give 110%, and he's going to commit to holy hell for this movie. No pun intended.
And this
Yeah.
man is addicted to action movies. And what is a superhero movie if not an action movie?
Yeah.
So,
So yeah, sign me up.
Design me.
Can't wait to see that movie in theaters. Can't wait to see what DC does to right the ship. Anything else you guys want to add before we get out of here?
Keanu, subscribe to our podcast.
Yes. Come on as a guest. I know you watch it already, so might as well hit subscribe. Um, yeah. So we got a lot more stuff planned. I'm guessing we're doing She-Hulk very, very soon at this recording. We don't know if Daredevil is going to be in the next episode, but I would 99% chance guess that he is. So we'll probably be doing that. We have some other spooky movies planned. I am Jeff. He's Ahmed. That's Gerald. We are Box Office Quarterbacks. Like and subscribe. Follow us on social media. And check out our website, boxofficeqbs.com. We will see you guys very, very soon.